They trapped humans on a Deathworld, but made one fatal mistake. Part 1. Susan Miller stood at the large window on Luna Base and watched as a strange light spread across Earth. The blue-green planet that had always been her home was now covered by what looked like a giant bubble. The light shimmered and pulsed, wrapping completely around the planet in less than 10 minutes. "What's happening?" asked Alan Wright as he rushed to her side. His face looked pale in the harsh light of the command center. Susan shook her head. Her short brown hair fell across her forehead, and she pushed it away with a shaking hand. "I don't know. We're trying to contact Earth now, but all channels are dead." As head of Earth's space defense program, Susan had been on Luna Base for a routine inspection when the strange event began. Now she and the 200 other humans stationed on the moon might be the only ones who could help. "Commander Miller," called Jack Ross from his station. "We're picking up strange ships entering the solar system. They're not ours." Susan rushed to his screen. The data showed at least 15 vessels of unknown design moving with impossible speed. They were slowing down as they approached the edge of the solar system. "Try to hail them," she ordered. "I've been trying," Jack said. No response on any frequency. The room fell silent as everyone realized what was happening. After centuries of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they had their answer, and it wasn't the friendly one they had hoped for. "Look," shouted someone. On the main screen, they could see smaller ships breaking away from the larger ones. These smaller craft were heading straight for Earth. "They're the ones who put up the barrier," Susan said quietly. "They've trapped everyone on Earth." The next few hours were chaos. Susan organized teams to monitor the alien ships and to keep trying to contact Earth. Other Luna Base workers checked their supplies and life support systems. If they couldn't get help from Earth, how long could they survive? By the time the base's day cycle ended, they had learned a few things. First, some signals could still be received from Earth, though they couldn't send messages back. People on Earth were panicking as they realized they were trapped. Second, the alien ships had taken positions around the solar system, but hadn't approached Luna Base or the Mars colony where about 300 more humans lived. Third, there were also about 500 humans on various space stations who were now cut off from Earth. So that's about 1,000 humans in space and 8 billion trapped on Earth, Susan said as she met with the base leaders. "Why didn't they trap us too? Or just destroy us all if they see us as a threat?" Dr. Paul Gordon, the base scientist, had a theory. "I think they're studying us. These beings, whoever they are, seem very advanced. They might see humans as an interesting experiment." "An experiment?" asked Lisa Reyes, who ran the base's farm sections. "What kind of experiment?" "Earth is what scientists might call a death world to other species," Paul explained. "It has high gravity, extreme weather, dangerous animals and bacteria and viruses. Everywhere. Most advanced life in the universe probably evolved in much gentler environments. They might be amazed that we survived at all, and now they want to see what we'll do under pressure." Susan didn't like the sound of that. "So we're lab rats to them?" "Maybe," Paul admitted. "But that might be good news. It means they might not kill us right away." Over the next few days, they managed to pick up TV and radio broadcasts from Earth. The situation there was getting worse. Governments were trying to maintain order, but people were scared. Some thought it was the end of the world. Religious groups claimed it was Judgment Day. Scientists worked around the clock to understand the barrier. Susan called another meeting 1 week after the barrier appeared. "We need a plan," she told the gathered leaders. "We can't just sit here and hope these aliens get bored and leave." "What can we do?" asked Alan. "Their technology is way beyond ours." "Maybe," Susan agreed. "But they don't know humans very well if they think a cage will hold us for long. We're going to fight back." "How?" several voices asked at once. "First, we need to unite all humans in space. Luna Base, Mars colony, all the space stations. We pool our resources and knowledge. Second, we study these aliens. Learn everything we can about them. Third, we build weapons." "With what?" asked Lisa. "We barely have enough supplies to survive. We have mines on the moon. We have the Mars factories. We have smart people who know how to build things from scratch. And most importantly, we have something these aliens don't expect. We're used to fighting impossible odds." "Not Not everyone was convinced, but they had no better options. Messages were sent to Mars and the space stations using laser communications that the aliens didn't seem to notice or care about. 2 weeks after the barrier went up, representatives from all human space settlements met virtually. They formed what they called the Free Human Alliance, with Susan elected as their leader. "We don't know why these aliens trapped our people on Earth," Susan told them in her acceptance speech. "We don't know what they want, or what they plan to do next. But we know this: humans don't give up. Earth has tried to kill us since the day we were born. We survived ice ages, plagues, and our own wars. We'll survive this too." As she spoke, a small alien craft approached Luna Base for the first time. Everyone watched nervously as it hovered outside, scanning the base with strange beams of light. "They're studying us," Paul whispered. "Good," said Susan. "Let them study us. Let them think we're no threat. That will be their biggest mistake." The alien ship finished its scan and moved away, apparently satisfied that the humans on the moon were contained and harmless. They had no idea that deep inside the base, humans were already drawing up plans for weapons that could pierce alien shields. They didn't know that on Mars, colonists were converting mining equipment into shipbuilding tools. They couldn't imagine that on space stations around Earth, scientists were analyzing every bit of data they could gather about the alien technology. The aliens had made a fatal mistake. They had trapped most of humanity on their Deathworld home, but they had left some humans free among the stars. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was turning a desperate situation into an opportunity. As Susan looked out at the barrier-covered Earth once more, she made a silent promise to everyone trapped there. "We're coming," she whispered. "Just hold on." They trapped humans on a death world, but made one fatal mistake. Part 2. 5 years passed since the day the aliens put their barrier around Earth. Life on the planet had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Dr. Olivia Parker wiped sweat from her forehead as she studied the readings on her screen. Her lab in Colorado had once been a small university research center. Now it was the headquarters of the Barrier Interaction Research Group, the most important scientific team on Earth. "Any changes?" asked her assistant, Ben Carter, as he brought her a cup of coffee. "Yes," Olivia said, pointing to a graph on her screen. "The barrier responded to our new frequency test. Look at this pattern." Ben leaned closer. The jagged lines on the screen showed how the alien barrier had pulsed slightly when they aimed their newly built transmitter at it. "It's alive?" he asked. "Not alive like a person or animal," Olivia explained. "But it's not just a wall of energy either. It reacts to things like a nervous system. If we touch it in the right way, it responds." This was the breakthrough they had been working toward for years. Since the quarantine began, scientists around the world had been studying the barrier, looking for any weakness. Most gave up after, finding nothing. But Olivia's team kept trying new approaches. "We need to tell the president," Ben said. Olivia nodded. "Set up the call." 2 days later, Olivia stood in a secure underground room, explaining her findings to President George Martinez and his advisors. The government had changed since the quarantine began. With no contact between countries except through internet and radio, the old alliances had fallen apart. New leaders emerged who could handle crisis better than politics. "So the barrier can be affected by our technology?" the president asked. "In a very small way, yes," Olivia replied. "It's like knocking on a door and hearing someone move inside. We can't open the door yet, but we know there's a way to interact with it." "How long until we can break through?" asked General Kate Lewis, who led Earth's Unified Defense Forces. "I don't know," Olivia admitted. "But this is just the first step. Now that we know the barrier responds to certain frequencies, we can try to find the right combination that might weaken it." The president looked thoughtful. "The aliens watch us constantly. Won't they notice what you're doing and stop it?" "That's a risk," Olivia agreed. "But they seem more interested in observing than interfering. They've never stopped any of our experiments before." "Maybe they don't think we can succeed," suggested Maria Lopez, the science advisor. "That would be their mistake," Olivia said. After the meeting, Olivia returned to her lab with new funding and resources. Teams around the world would now coordinate their efforts based on her discovery. It gave people hope, something that had been in short supply since the barrier appeared. Hope was needed more than ever, because Earth was changing in other ways too. Children born after the quarantine began were different. Doctors noticed it. First, these kids had faster reflexes, better immune systems, and could handle stress better than children born before the barrier. Olivia studied these changes as well. In her lab's second research area, she worked with Dr. Sam Roberts, a specialist in human biology. "Look at these brain scans," Sam said, showing her the results from their latest study of post-barrier children. "These patterns are unlike anything we've seen before." The scans showed increased activity in areas of the brain that were normally dormant in humans. "It's like their brains are evolving," Olivia said. "Not just their brains," Sam replied. "Their entire bodies. Some of these kids can see in near darkness. Others can hear sounds that should be beyond human range." "The barrier is changing us," Olivia realized. "But why? Is it radiation leaking through?" "I don't think so," Sam said. "Our tests don't show harmful radiation. It's more like the barrier is stimulating changes that were already possible in human DNA." "Accelerated evolution," Olivia whispered. "The aliens might be doing this on purpose." That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the barrier, the changed children, and what it all meant. If the aliens were deliberately changing humans, what was their goal? In the morning, she had a new theory. She called Sam, Ben, and her other top researchers to her office. "What if the barrier isn't just keeping us in?" she asked. "What if it's also preparing us for something?" "Like what?" Ben asked. "I don't know. But think about it. These aliens put a barrier around Earth that's almost impossible to break. But at the same time, it's making humans stronger, faster, more adaptable." "That doesn't make sense," Sam said. "Why trap us if they're helping us become better?" "Maybe they're not trying to help," Olivia suggested. "Maybe they're running an experiment. They want to see how we adapt to being trapped, what we become under pressure." The room was silent as everyone considered this idea. "If that's true," Ben finally said, "then they're playing with fire. Humans don't do well in cages." "Exactly," Olivia agreed, "which means we need to move faster with our research. If we can understand how the barrier is changing us, maybe we can use that knowledge to break free." The next day, Olivia presented her new theory to President Martinez in a private call. He listened carefully, then asked, "How should we proceed?" "Two ways," Olivia replied. "First, we continue trying to affect the barrier directly with our transmitters. Second, we study the children more closely. If the barrier is changing human abilities, we need to understand and maybe even enhance those changes." "You're suggesting we use children in our resistance?" the president asked, looking uncomfortable. "Not as weapons," Olivia clarified, "but their new abilities might be the key to understanding the aliens' technology. These kids can perceive things we can't." After some discussion, the president approved her plan. New research centers would be built to study both the barrier and the changed children, all while the aliens watched from their ships. 6 months later, Olivia made another breakthrough. Working with a group of post-barrier children, her team discovered that some of them could actually sense the barrier's energy patterns. "It's like music," explained 7-year-old Zoe Harris, one of the most sensitive children. "I can feel when it changes, like different notes." With Zoe's help, Olivia's team created a map of the barrier's energy flows. They found patterns and rhythms no instrument could detect. And most importantly, they found weak points, places where the right frequency might disrupt the barrier's stability. "We're getting closer," Olivia told President Martinez during their monthly update. "But we need more power than we currently have to exploit these weak points." "How much more?" he asked. "A global effort," she replied. "Transmitters on every continent, all firing at exactly the same moment, with precisely the right frequencies." It seemed impossible, but humans had been achieving the impossible since the day the barrier appeared. New industries had emerged, new technologies developed, all focused on survival and freedom. As Olivia looked at the barrier from her lab window that night, she felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. Real hope. The aliens had made a critical mistake when they trapped humans on their Deathworld. They had forgotten that Earth itself had shaped humanity, had made them the most adaptable, most determined species imaginable, and now, that determination had a focus: breaking free. They trapped humans on a Deathworld, but made one fatal mistake. Part 3. While Earth struggled under the alien barrier, the humans in space were not sitting idle. The Free Human Alliance had grown stronger over the 5 years since the quarantine began. Susan Miller walked through the wide tunnel carved deep inside the moon. What had once been a small research base was now a sprawling underground city. Over 800 people lived here now, with more arriving each month from Mars and the space stations. "Commander Miller," called Alan Wright as he hurried to catch up with her. Alan had been with her since the first day and now served as her second in command. "The new ships are ready for inspection." Susan nodded and changed direction, heading toward the large airlock that led to the surface. They put on their spacesuits quickly, having done this hundreds of times before. Outside on the dusty surface of the moon, Susan looked up at the Earth. The blue planet still shimmered with the alien barrier. Sometimes she wondered if they would ever see it free again. "This way," Alan said, pointing to a group of low buildings about half a mile away. They drove there in a small rover. The buildings looked plain from the outside, designed to avoid attention from the alien ships that sometimes passed by. But inside was humanity's secret hope. Jack Foster met them at the entrance. He had been a communications specialist before the quarantine. Now he was the chief engineer for their most important project. "They're ready," he said with pride. "All 6 of them." Susan followed him through the airlock and into the hidden shipyard. There, lined up in neat rows, were 6 sleek spacecraft unlike anything humans had built before. "The Breacher class," Jack said. "Just as you ordered." The ships were small, built for speed and stealth rather than comfort. Each one could hold only 4 crew members. Their hulls were covered with a special material developed using knowledge gained from studying the alien ships. "Will they work?" Susan asked, walking around the nearest ship. "In theory, yes," Jack replied. "We've tested the hull material against samples of the barrier energy. It can absorb and redirect the energy instead of being destroyed by it." "In theory isn't good enough," Susan said. "We need to know for sure before we risk people's lives. That's why we built 6, Alan reminded her. "We'll test the first one without a crew." Susan nodded. They had been working toward this moment for 5 years. Every resource the space colonies could spare had gone into understanding the alien technology and building these ships. "When can we launch the first test?" she asked. "Tomorrow," Jack said. "Everything is ready." That night, Susan couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about everything that could go wrong. If the aliens noticed what they were doing, they might decide that the humans in space were too dangerous to leave free. But they had no choice. They had to try to break through the barrier and free Earth. The next day, Susan, Alan, and all the project leaders gathered in the control room deep under the lunar surface. On screens around them, they could see the first Breacher ship sitting on its launch pad. "All systems are go," Jack reported. "Launch in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The ship lifted off silently, rising from the lunar surface and heading toward Earth. Everyone held their breath as it approached the barrier. "Sensors are working," said Lisa Reyes, who monitored the ship's data. "The hull is absorbing the barrier energy as planned." The ship touched the barrier, creating ripples of light across the energy field. For a moment, it looked like it might break through. Then alarms started blaring. "Energy levels are rising too fast," Lisa shouted. "The ship can't handle it." On the screen, they watched as the Breacher ship began to glow red-hot. Then it exploded in a flash of light. Silence fell over the control room. 5 years of work destroyed in seconds. "We need to analyze the data," Susan finally said. "Figure out what went wrong. And we need to do it fast before the aliens investigate the explosion." The team worked for 3 days straight, barely stopping to eat or sleep. When they finally emerged from the control room, they had answers. The barrier is stronger than we thought, Jack explained to the gathered leaders. But we also learned something important. The barrier has a rhythm to it like a pulse. If we time our approach correctly, we might be able to slip through during a weak moment. How do we know when these weak moments occur? Susan asked. That's the problem, Jack admitted. The rhythm changes, we can't predict it. Susan thought for a moment. What if we had help from inside? If someone on Earth could disrupt the barrier at the same time we try to break through? That would work, Jack agreed. But we have no way to communicate with Earth. Actually, we might, Alan said. Everyone turned to look at him. Dr. Paul Gordon has been working on a new communication system. It uses quantum entanglement. In theory, it can't be blocked by the barrier. Why haven't I heard about this? Susan asked. Because, until yesterday, it didn't work, Alan explained. But Paul thinks he's solved the final problem. Within an hour, Susan was in Paul's lab, watching as the scientist adjusted his strange-looking device. It's very limited, Paul warned. We can only send simple text messages, and only to a receiver that's paired with this specific transmitter. But it will get through the barrier? Susan asked. It should. Quantum entanglement doesn't care about physical barriers. Who on Earth has the other receiver? No one yet, Paul admitted. We need to send it down somehow. Susan thought hard. The aliens allowed small meteor impacts on Earth to occur naturally. They only stopped large objects that might damage the planet. How small can you make the receiver? She asked. About the size of a fist, Paul said. And can you make it look like a rock? Paul grinned as he understood her plan. Absolutely. 2 weeks later, they were ready. The disguised receiver was loaded into a special launcher that would fire it toward Earth at high speed, making it look like a natural meteor. Target is the Colorado Rockies, Paul said, near Dr. Olivia Parker's research facility. From what we've been able to observe, she's the leader of Earth's barrier research. Will she find it? Susan asked. We've programmed it to emit a signal that her equipment should detect. If she's as smart as her reputation suggests, she'll figure it out. They launched the disguised receiver that night. It streaked toward Earth, passing through the barrier without triggering any alien response. Now we wait, Susan said. They didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, the quantum communication device lit up with a message. This is Dr. Olivia Parker. Who am I speaking with? Susan felt tears in her eyes as she typed back. Commander Susan Miller, Free Human Alliance. We're working to free Earth. Can you help? The reply came quickly. We've been expecting you. The barrier has a weakness. Together, we can break it. For the first time in 5 years, Susan felt real hope. The aliens had made their biggest mistake when they left humans on both sides of the barrier. Now those two groups were joining forces, and the aliens wouldn't know what hit them. They trapped humans on a death world, but made one fatal mistake. Part 4. The connection between Earth and the Free Human Alliance changed everything. For the first time since the barrier appeared, the two groups of humans could work together. Olivia. Parker sat in her underground lab, typing another message to Commander Susan Miller. Over the past month, they had exchanged hundreds of messages, sharing all they had learned about the alien barrier. Our research confirms your findings, Olivia wrote. The barrier has a pulse like a heartbeat. We've mapped the pattern for our section, but it changes slightly around the planet. The reply came quickly. We've improved our ships based on your data. The new design should be able to handle the energy fluctuations better, but we still need a way to weaken the barrier at the moment of breakthrough. Olivia looked at the screens around her, showing the data from experiments all over the world. I think we have a solution, she typed. The children. On the moon, Susan read this message with confusion. What children? She asked Alan, who was reading over her shoulder. Must be the post-barrier children, he suggested. We've picked up some strange readings from Earth that might be related to them. Susan typed back. Please explain. Olivia's response detailed the changes they had seen in children born after the barrier appeared. How some could sense the barrier's energy. How others showed abilities that seemed almost like magic. 7-year-old Zoe Harris can actually affect the barrier with her mind, Olivia wrote. When she concentrates, we can measure small disruptions in the energy field. Other children have shown similar abilities to varying degrees. Susan was amazed. The aliens hadn't just trapped humans, they had changed them. Can these children create a disruption large enough for our ships to break through? She asked. Not individually, Olivia replied. But we've been gathering the most talented children from around the world. Together, with the right equipment to amplify their abilities, they might create a window large enough for your ships to enter. Susan shared this information with her team. Jack Foster, who had been working on the new breacher ships, was skeptical. We're putting our hopes on children? He asked. Not just children, Susan reminded him. Children who have developed in ways we don't fully understand, possibly because of alien influence. Which raises another question, Paul Gordon said. Why would the aliens help create humans with abilities that could break their barrier? No one had a good answer to that. But they had no choice but to move forward with the plan. Over the next few weeks, Olivia's team built special equipment to help the children focus their abilities. Susan's team completed 3 new breacher ships, incorporating everything they had learned from the failed first attempt. We need a date, Susan told Olivia. When will your team be ready? Olivia consulted with her colleagues and the parents of the special children. 2 weeks, she replied. The summer solstice. The barrier seems slightly weaker during major astronomical events. Susan agreed, and preparations began on both sides. On Earth, 43 children with special abilities were brought to Olivia's facility. They ranged in age from 4 to 9 years old, all born after the barrier appeared. Zoe Harris, now 8, was their leader. She had the strongest connection to the barrier and could help the other children focus their abilities. It feels like singing, she told Olivia. When we all do it together, it's like a big choir, but instead of making sound, we're making holes. On the moon, Susan selected crews for the 3 breacher ships. She would command the lead ship herself, with Alan as her pilot. The bravest and most skilled members of the Alliance would fly, the other 2. This is a one-way trip, she told them. Once we break through, we won't be able to return until the barrier is completely down. If we fail, we'll be trapped on Earth with everyone else. No one backed out. They had all been working toward this moment for 5 years. The night before the mission, Susan couldn't sleep. She walked to the observation dome and looked up at Earth. The blue planet glowed behind its shimmering prison. We're coming, she whispered. The next morning, the 3 breacher ships launched from the far side of the moon, hidden from the alien watchers. They took a long route around lunar orbit, staying in the moon's shadow as long as possible. Quantum link established. With Earth, reported Lisa Reyes from her communications station. Dr. Parker reports they're ready to begin. On Earth, Olivia stood in a large room surrounded by the special children. They sat in a circle, holding hands, with Zoe in the center. Strange machines hummed around them, designed to amplify the children's natural abilities. Remember what we practiced, Olivia told them gently. Focus on creating a thin spot in the barrier, right above this facility. Just for a few minutes, that's all we need. Zoe closed her eyes. One by one, the other children did the same. The machine's hum grew louder. Olivia watched the monitors. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly, readings began to change. The barrier's energy was fluctuating, becoming unstable directly overhead. It's working, she whispered. She sent a message to Susan. Beginning now, the window will open in approximately 5 minutes and will last for less than 2 minutes. Good luck. In space, the 3 breacher ships accelerated toward Earth. They had timed their approach to reach the barrier at exactly the right moment. We're getting readings of energy fluctuation, Jack reported from his science station. The barrier is becoming unstable at the target coordinates. Susan gripped her chair tightly. Full speed, we won't get a second chance. The ships raced toward the weakening spot in the barrier. On Earth, the children strained with effort, their faces pale. Machines sparked and smoked as they channeled more power than they were designed to handle. Hold on, Olivia encouraged them. Just a little longer. The lead breacher ship hit the barrier at the thinnest point. Energy crackled around. Its hull. Warning alarms blared inside. Hull temperature rising, Alan reported. But we're still intact. For a terrible moment, the ship seemed stuck half in and half out of the barrier. Then, with a final surge of power, it broke through, followed closely by the other two ships. "We made it," Susan shouted. The ships streaked through Earth's atmosphere, heading for the landing coordinates near Olivia's facility. In the children's chamber, several of the machines exploded. The children collapsed, exhausted but unharmed. Zoe opened her eyes and smiled weakly. "They're here," she said. "I can feel them." Olivia checked the sky radar. 3 ships were indeed approaching, slowing for landing. She sent a final message to Susan. "Welcome home. Phase 1 complete." The aliens had made their biggest mistake. By separating humanity, they had created 2 groups that developed in different ways. Now those groups were reuniting, combining space technology with Earth's evolved abilities, and they were ready to fight back. They trapped humans on a Deathworld, but made one fatal mistake. Part 5. The reunion of space-dwelling humans with Earth was just the beginning. Susan Miller stepped out of her breacher ship and breathed Earth air for the first time in 5 years. The Colorado mountains looked so beautiful that tears came to her eyes. Olivia Parker was waiting for her, along with a group of scientists and military personnel. Behind them stood a small group of children, watching with curious eyes. "Commander Miller," Olivia said, extending her hand. "Welcome back to Earth." Susan shook her hand firmly. "Dr. Parker, thank you for making it possible." The 2 women had only communicated through text messages before, but they felt like old friends. They had the same goal: to free humanity from its prison. "These are the children who helped create the opening in the barrier," Olivia said. Gesturing to the group behind her, Susan walked over to them and knelt down to be at their eye level. "Thank you," she said simply. "You've done something amazing today." A small girl with bright eyes stepped forward. "You're welcome," she said. "I'm Zoe. We've been practicing a lot." "I can tell," Susan smiled. "And we're going to need your help again. What we did today was just the first step. The next few days were busy ones. The crews from all 3 breacher ships met with Earth's top scientists and military leaders. They shared everything they had learned about the aliens, who called themselves the Valkyrie. Susan's teams brought technology developed in space, while Olivia's group provided data about the barrier and the special abilities of the post-barrier children. President Martinez himself came to the facility to meet with Susan. "Your arrival has given people new hope," he told her. "For the first time, many believe we might actually break free." "We will," Susan assured him. "But we need to move quickly before the Valkyrie realize what we're planning." So far, the aliens had shown no reaction to the breach. Their ships continued to orbit Earth, maintaining the barrier and observing the planet. "They probably think it was just a meteor strike," Olivia suggested. "They allow small objects through all the time." "Or they don't care," Susan said. "Maybe they want to see what we'll do next." The combined human forces developed a plan. They would create not just one small hole in the barrier, but multiple breaches all around the planet at the same time. The special children would be transported to key locations, where they would use their abilities together with advanced technology from Luna Base. "We've learned that the barrier is like a network," Olivia explained during a planning session. "If we disrupt it in enough places simultaneously, the whole thing could collapse." "And what about the alien ships?" General Lewis asked. "Once the barrier falls, they'll attack." Susan nodded. "That's why we brought these." She showed them plans for weapons developed on Luna and Mars. "We've studied the alien ships for 5 years. We know their weaknesses." The plan required extensive preparation. They had 1 month to get everything ready. Special equipment was built to amplify the children's abilities. Defense systems were installed at key locations around the world, and all of this had to be done in secret, hidden from the watching aliens. Zoe and the other children trained harder than ever. Their abilities had grown stronger since the first breach, as if breaking through the barrier once had opened something inside them. "It's like the barrier is part of us now," Zoe explained to Olivia and Susan. We can feel it all the time. Can you feel the aliens too? Susan asked. Zoe nodded. Sometimes. They're curious. They watch us like we're in a zoo. They don't think we can hurt them. That's their mistake, Susan said. The day of the global breach arrived. Teams were in position at 12 locations around the planet, each with a group of special children and equipment from Luna Base. Susan and Olivia were at the main site in Colorado, with Zoe and the strongest children. All teams report ready, Alan said, checking the communications system. Susan looked at Olivia, who nodded. Begin the countdown, Susan ordered. The plan was for all sites to activate at exactly the same moment. The children would focus their abilities on the barrier, while the special equipment amplified and directed their power. 10, 9, 8, Alan counted down. Around the world, children closed their eyes and reached out with their minds. 7, 6, 5. The equipment hummed to life, channeling energy toward the barrier. 4, 3, 2. Susan held her breath. 1. Now. Zoe and the children with her joined hands. Their faces showed intense concentration. The machines around them glowed brightly. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then slowly the sky began to change. The faint shimmer that had been visible for 5 years started to pulse and ripple. Energy readings are spiking, Jack reported, watching the monitors. The barrier is becoming unstable. Around the world, the same thing was happening. 12 points of disruption, all hitting the barrier simultaneously. The Valkyrie ships above Earth moved quickly, trying to strengthen the weakening sections. They've noticed, Susan said grimly. Now we'll see if they can stop us. The alien ships fired energy beams at the barrier, trying to stabilize it. But they couldn't be everywhere at once, and they had never expected an attack from inside. In the control room, Zoe suddenly opened her eyes. I can feel them, she said. The aliens. They're afraid. Outside, the barrier was visibly breaking apart now. Great cracks appeared in the energy field, spreading like ice breaking on a pond. The Valkyrie ships moved frantically, trying to repair the damage, but there were too many breaches. It's working, Olivia exclaimed. With a sound like distant thunder, the barrier began to collapse. Sections of energy fell like slow-motion rain, dissolving before they reached the ground. The Valkyrie ships spun in confusion, some trying to maintain what was left of the barrier, others preparing to attack. Defense systems online, General Lewis announced. We're ready for them. But something unexpected happened. As the last of the barrier dissolved, the Valkyrie ships didn't attack. Instead, they began to retreat, moving away from Earth at high speed. They're running away, Alan said in disbelief. Susan watched the radar as the alien ships accelerated, out of Earth orbit. They didn't expect this, she said. They thought they were studying us safely. They never imagined we could break free. And they certainly never expected the children, Olivia added, looking at Zoe with pride. In the following days, the remaining human settlements in space were reunited with Earth. The Valkyrie ships left the solar system entirely, though human observers kept careful watch in case they returned. President Martinez declared a global holiday to celebrate humanity's freedom. In his speech, he said, "The aliens thought they were containing a dangerous species. Instead, they forced us to become something even stronger. They trapped us on what they considered a death world. But they forgot one thing. This death world made us who we are. And we will never be trapped again." 1 month after the barrier fell, Susan and Olivia stood on a hillside watching the sunset. It was the first truly peaceful moment they had shared. "Do you think they'll come back?" Olivia asked. Susan looked up at the darkening sky. "Maybe, but we'll be ready. And next time we won't be fighting to escape. We'll be fighting to explore." Beside them, Zoe played with other children, all of them showing abilities that would have seemed impossible before the barrier. The aliens had changed humanity forever, but not in the way they intended. Their greatest mistake wasn't trapping humans on a death world. It was forgetting that humans had survived that death world for thousands of years. and they had only gotten stronger because of it.